Hello, my dear fellows, travelers, friends, and photographers around the world. Welcome to Chris Lee Travel Channel. Today will be my third and the last episode of my travel journey to Central Vietnam, and I will be introducing you a very fascinating city, an ancient imperial city, and the name of this imperial city is Hue. So, for those who are first time joining me, Vietnam is a long, slim nation in Southeast Asia, as can be seen in this map. And the region that we're going to cover with you today will be right at the area that circle in red in these maps. We already earlier covered two areas, two main cities. One is Da Nang, then is Hue An at the south, and now we're moving up to the north to Hue, which is north of Da Nang. And this is the location of Hue, and this city will definitely have a lot to offer, but in terms of history, because it is one of the ancient capital of Vietnam. So let's have some background of Hue. Now, Hue is the capital of Thua Thien Hue province in central Vietnam, and one of the most charming towns in Vietnam, and is located on the bank of the beautifully named Perfume River, just a few kilometers inland from the East Sea. Now, this part of Vietnam has a long and illustrious history, and is used to be one of the main royal capitals of the country. Now, it's about 700 kilometers south of Hanoi, and as well as 1,100 kilometers north of Ho Chi Minh City. Now, Hue was the capital ofDan Tron from the 1738 to 1775, and the Nguyen dynasty from 1802 to 1945. Now, the city served as administrative capitals for the Nguyen dynasty, and later functioned as the administrative capital of the Protectorate of the Annans during the French Indochina period. Right. Now, Hue is well known for its historic monuments. The city economy is primarily built around tourism. Now, as it has earned its a place in and contain one of the few UNESCO designated sites in Vietnam, the complex of the Hue monuments being a tourist attraction. Now, alongside it, more and the thick stone walls. Right now, the complex encompasses the imperial city with the palaces and shrine. Now, the Forbidden Purple City, once the emperor homes, and a replica of the Royal Theatre. And nearly 4.2 million visitors have visited the city in the year 2019, prior to the COVID pandemic, and many of its historic landmarks are undergoing restorations. So now let's look at the map of this Hue Imperial City, and you can notice that actually the area that actually circle in the square, within the red square, is where the palace is. Well, the surrounding area are actually the Imperial City at large, the general ancient capital. Now, despite the fast pace of urbanization and cultural assimilations that are raging on in other parts of the Southeast Asian nations, Hue, as a former capital of Vietnam, takes pride in its long history as atmospheric temples, sublime royal palaces, and unique cultural traits that can hardly be found elsewhere in Vietnam. Now, besides the exotic elements of the imperial city, a walled enclosure between the citadels. Thus, Hui is extremely well known for its cultural heritage and the elements recognized by the UNESCO. Now, one of which is Hanat. Sorry, I had to spell correctly. The pronounce sorry, Hat. Hat. Sorry, is a Vietnamese court music. Now, roughly along the Perfume River from Hui lie the other monuments, including the tomb of several emperors, including the Minh Mang tombs, the Khai Din tomb, and the Two Ducks tomb. Right. Also notable is the Tian Mui Pagoda, the largest pagodas in Hui and the official symbols of the city. So now we look at the map here. The river that right in front of you is the Perfume River, and you can see there are few bridges crossing over it. And this is a closer view of the palace compound. And you can see within the palace compound, they house quite a number of buildings as well. So entering to this imperial city after crossing the river, then this is actually the entrance views that you can see the wall that had been built surrounding the imperial city. And within the compound, and you will also notice there are some exhibition displays of the war tank. In this case, you can see those tank and fighter planes, right, and also the guns, right. So here is right at the front of this entrance to this palace complex. At the back of this image, you can see the huge square and a monuments with a tall flag post being posed, right, set up at the background as can be seen. And this is actually one of the main entrance palace buildings. And it seems to be the construction of this imperial city is a replicate of the imperial city in a much more smaller scales as compared in Beijing, China. The imperial city of Beijing, China. And these are some of the close shots. And to enter into the imperial city, the palace complex, you need to walk through a thick fortress wall that's surrounding them. And you can see that even this is actually the tunnel. There are few tunnels leading into these complexes. This is one of them. And when you enter the imperial palace regions, you can see these are the general view. At far, actually is the main buildings, one of the very important palace buildings. Our visit happened to be during the month of January in the year 2013, and it's I believe it's just before the Chinese New Year or the Lunar New Year. And there are quite a number of very well collected, well preserved building structures. Particularly, I look at this one of the wall that within the palace complex. Now, just to also touch on this imperial citadel. Now, the imperial citadel in Hui been one of the Vietnam's 7 UNESCO World Heritage Sites, and this imperial city had been the previous center of the government and was actually a war fortress. And the palace belonged to the ancient city of Hui, which was a capital city of the Qian dynasty for about 140 years. dated back from the 1805 to 1945. Now, this imperial citadel is the most massive building structure that been built in the history of modern Vietnam, that involving thousands of workers, millions of cubic meter of rocks, and huge volume of burden workload. Now, the Citadel's Palace complex is located on the north bank of Perfume River, as can be seen in the earlier maps, inside the Hue city, and is made up of vast complex covering an area of approximately 520 hectares of land and comprises 3 circles of rampart. Right? And at the same time, it is said to be protected by the 2 sand dune. Now, and on top of that, the Perfume River, right, been as the there are also built quite a number of gates before you can enter this building site. Now, this imperial city will make the UNESCO World Cultural Heritage Site in the year 1993, and with the remaining building being actively restored and preserved after the destruction from the Vietnam War. In other words, this UNESCO site was quite considered lucky, even though was have been partially destroyed during the recent Vietnam War. Now, Imperial City has a circumference of about 10 kilometers with the height of the wall approximately 6.6 meters, and of course the thickness of this wall is 21 meters. Right, and initially the fortress was built solely by soil, only to be replaced by bricks afterwards later on. Right, surrounding the city is the complicated canal system, served not only as a protection but also as a waterways, which nearly 7 kilometers in length. Now, there are actually a total of 10 main majestic gates leading to the imperial city of Hue, and what the image shared with you now is one of them, and which can be divided into 2 main parts, excluding houses and mansions. The citadels and the Forbidden City, the former served to protect the important palaces inside, while the latter was where the emperor and the royal family stay, as well as the court's workplace. Now, all the typical traditional Eastern architectures, including the majestic palaces, the tomb, the museum, that stand accordingly together to make an utmost amusing and attractions right in the heart of Vietnam. So we can just look at this gate itself. You can see from the construction and the decoration is so magnificent and so intricate in every way. And this is just one of the zoom in view of one of the ornaments that put on this gate. And these are some of the very interesting building architectures that have been I think had been restored, and it's so impressive and also colorful. And these are some of the painting that put on these building facades. Now, this imperial city of Hue has long been a must-see attractions for tourists visiting a hidden charm of Vietnam, and it is an ideal place for those wishing to have a better understanding of the architectural and cultural beauty, as well as the history of Vietnam. As you can see from all the last few images and these images, you can really appreciate the beauty of this architecture's presentation and displays in these buildings in the palace. These are some of the roof constructions and detailed decorations on it. . . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . . . . 。 . . 。 . . . 。 . . 。 . . 。 . . . . . .
。 . . 。 . 。 . 。 .
So when you walk around and you can amount the Fielder's release of the immense architecture and cultural value that displaying the traditional and classical side of Vietnam, which located all over the imperial grounds. On the mall, also the carved gates and in the royal pavilions stand for over 200 years and almost remain unchanged. These wooden structures and these constructions of it interiorly, a long paved corridor and some dragon statue. You still can find some old cannons that have been displaced, and even the steps, the side way, the handrail area or the side of the steps are well decorated and carved. And I'm going to bring you to a very important tomb. Although earlier I mentioned three tombs, royal tombs, but I would want specifically highlight to you one of the tomb that attract me the most is this Hai Dinh tomb. It can be seen in this image now. Now, despite being the smallest, this Hai Dinh tomb is the costliest or the most expensive one compared with other Nguyen royal tombs. Now, after his ascendancy to throne in 1916, Emperor Khai Dinh chose the slopes of the Chua Chu Mountains, which is about 10 kilometers from the Hui Center, to construct his home in the other world. Now, according to the Oriental belief that it was started building in the year 1920 and completed 11 years later by his successor, the Emperor Bao Dai. Now, in order to complete the tomb, the rulers have to raise national tax to about 30%. By then, Vietnam sovereignty was lost to French invader, and Western culture was prevailing all over the country. Now, consequently, Khai Dinh tomb is the result of the interminglings of the Oriental and the Occidental, the Romans and Gothic style, mainly subject to influence of the Western country, and Hindu as well as Buddhist style. So it also included the ancient and modern feature, and therefore it's very unique piece of ancient tomb that still attract thousands of visitors each year just to wonder among the differences and the merging between the ancient and the modern style of construction. Now, this Khai Dinh chose to build his tomb by modern material like concrete, slate, and wrought irons. Hence, its appearance is quite grey and imposing, as you can see from this image, right? It's not very colorful in look. So this is actually one of the main entrance leading steps to the tomb, and you can see even the arch. It was built right at the stairway, at the top of the stairway. The carving works were very impressive and very intensive as well. And upon ascending the stair to the next platform, you can see there are a lot of stone statue being displayed. Now, when I look at this image, at first, the main building bring about a strong western feel for most people who actually first look at it. However, the landscape was arranged and reflects the traditional perceptions, a balanced combination between the wood, land, water, and plants. Now, Aurora is an emerging rectangular structure with about 127 steps leaning against the mountain. And of course, the side wall was formed by the biggest sculpture of dragon in all over Vietnam. Now, after climbing upstairs, tourists can first see the house of Epitaphs, the statue of Mandarin Court, as what can be seen in the image now, which also included horses and soldiers, etc., are placed at the courtyard area. And the most notable place in the Cardin tomb is the Thiên Đình Palace, where I will share with you later on in the image, which contains bronze statue and the stage of the king. Wall of densely decorated and inlaid with the elaborated glass and porcelains design. Now, the most highlighted feature of this room is the intricate painting on the ceiling. Let's move on to this main hall now. This is just a facade of this main hall, main buildings. There are quite a number of ancillary small buildings surrounding the main buildings. And every buildings in these tombs are very fascinating. Here now, we are now entering this main tomb area. So now you can see the decoration on the wall as well on the ceiling. And now we enter. You can see now, as mentioned just now, it's one of the most interesting and most beautiful parts of the entire tomb area. Here you can just look at the ceiling works, intricate ceiling works. Now, and here you can see that this ceiling illustrating the nine dragon amidst feeding crowd. Right, you can see now, and inside the tombs there are two statues, models of the king, and the one on the throne was sculptured in Paris in the year 1920s by Dusings and Barbadien. Sorry for the pronunciation. So more closer view of the decoration. Now you can see the tomb, one of the statue, right? They sit on the throne. Surrounding of the main hall, you can see the glass and the porcelain decoration on the wall. This is a modern aspect of the tomb. And this another statue of the king. And now we move on to another tomb, the Tu Dun tomb. Now, this Tu Dun tomb was located in a narrow valley 8 kilometers from Hue. And Tu Dun tomb is one of the most beautifully designed complexes among the tombs of the Nguyen dynasty. Now, embedded in a large pine forest, this tomb is the final resting place of Emperor Tuduk, right, and which actually lasts from 1848 to 1883, who have the longest range of all emperor of the Nguyen dynasty. Now, although he had 104 wives, my dear fool, and also concubines, he was unable to father a son, possibly because He becomes sterilized after contracting a smallpox, which in the ancient time, right, the smallpox is not curable, right. As usual at the time, the Tuduk has begun planning and constructing his tomb long before he died in 1883. Now, the tomb started its construction in 1864. Thus, the major part of the tomb complex were built around 1864 till 1867. In his lifetime, the Emperor Tuduk used the tomb as a palatial retreat together with his many wives and concubines. Now, the more interesting part about this tomb is that despite of the grandeur of the site and the amount of time Tuduk spent here, he was actually buried in a different secret location somewhere in Hui. Now, to keep the secrets, the buried place I'm referred to, safe, the 200 laborers who buried the king were all beheaded after they returned from the secret routes. To this day, the real tomb of Tuduk remain hidden and still keep many historians busy trying to find out the whereabouts of his locations. So let's have a look. Now this tomb, although have one vast, large compound, but somehow compared to the tomb I shared with just now, you can see that this is much more plain and not as elegant as that's why it's not one of the expensive one. All right, very simple setup, but take up a huge area. During a visit happened to be raining, so unfortunately because of that, we was limited to visiting some of the main building within the tomb area. Now the inside the complex, which cover about 12 hectares of land area, there are about 50 gates, right, and buildings, terraces and pavilions. All of the names of the constructions include the word Kems, which mean modesty, right? The tomb is divided into two main parts. First off, the temple area, and then the tomb area. Now, the temple area starts with the Wuguang entrance and the romantic Lucan lakes, which just now we saw in the first image. There's a lake there. On the lake, there are Zhongqian Pavilion, the wooden pavilion, and the Dongqian Pavilion. Now, the temple part continue with three Tian stone steps to Tian Chun gates leading to the Hokian Palace. Now, which was the emperor's working place and is now used as an altar devoted to the emperor and empress. Now, on its side, there are Hap Kian's house and Li Qian house for the military and civil mandarin. Right? So just look at some of the building structure, and remember I mentioned just now the lake, and you can see this is the pavilion there, and they have even building the wooden stair leading to the lake area. From this image, you can see that the outside is raining and we just hide inside the building. And they have, these are some of the building along corridor. And this is one of the interesting part of the tomb buildings. As far as the roof construction, you can see they have very much resemble the roof construction style in China. And now we move on to another, and also this is the last piece of a place of interest that I will share with you. Tian Mui Pagoda. Now, Tian Hui Pagoda is another famous pagoda in Hui. Now, this temple sit overlook the Perfume River and is known for its gold and silver images of the Buddha. Now, the pagoda is also well known for in Vietnam that it is also the official symbol of Hui, and you can take a in beautiful view over the city from this spot. Now, other highlight is to look out for inside, including a huge bell and that was cast in 1710, as well as a stone turtle which dated from the 17th century and hold a marble stele. So this is the entrance view before ascending to the plaza area, and you can see the pagoda is right at the back. Inside the compound area, one of the main temple building in the pagoda regions. So I hereby end my travelogues to the central Vietnam, Hui, the imperial city, and some of the historical place of interest. And in the next episode, I'll be sharing with you something very special and something very new. All this while in my travel, I'm actually those my travel that conducted pre-COVID, all right. And the coming episode will be post-COVID travel, my first travel. I'm going to share with you a very beautiful islands in Malaysia, and this will be my first post-COVID travelogue. And in these episodes, the coming episode, I will sharing with you some of aerial photography which I've taken. Is the first of my first I have tried the first time fly a drone to capture some aerial view of the islands, the beautiful island that famous for snorkeling and also for diving. So please stay tuned. And at the same time, if you have stayed until this hour with me, I presume you have been entertained. If you have not been subscribing to my travel channel, please do so. Help me to promote this travel channel to your friend and family so that they can be like you, travel virtually at the comfort of the home. At the same time, please give me a like and thumb up, and hope to see you again in the coming weeks. And I will thank you again for all the support given to me to my travel channel, and hopefully the world is getting better and more traveling can be conducted. And just a piece of news, I'll be traveling again soon. So after my next episode itself, there will be a break of about a month because I'll be traveling to Pakistan. And I hope that after the trip from Pakistan, I will give you more interesting images from the trip in Pakistan. And see you then. Bye.